Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You are not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Allmendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Dr. Emilie Wilson. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Heather. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. Guess here is why Dr. Emilie is visiting us. She is a naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, author, and a new mom. She spent her career helping women transform their bodies and she lose weight by balancing their hormones, reclaiming their cardiometabolic health. She was inspired by her own 40-pound weight loss. Congratulations. And she has had the privilege and thrill of walking as a new woman, being 40 pounds lighter, with none of the hormone, gut, or mood symptoms that have plagued her for years. Her daughter was born in 2022, and she experienced a traumatic home birth. Her recovery and postpartum experience included a lonely journey through postpartum depression and big maternal healthcare crisis. And she decided that during her postpartum journey, she learned about the BIPOC and transgender birthing parents inordinately bear the burden of postpartum health struggles, both physical and mental, while also having less access to medical care. She looked for answers, she couldn't find them, and so she wrote a book compiling all of the information that she has learned and that women need that their doctors just couldn't give them. So with that, Dr. Emilie, oh my goodness, there is so much. I know that your bio has so much more information in there, and I tried to wrap it all up. Before we get into your journey and your birth and your book and all that other fun stuff, would you be open to sharing a cycle story and about what age were you when you started cycling?
Yes. So first, I'm so glad that we live in a world now where we can talk about this kind of stuff because I remember I painfully remember how it felt to kind of come of age for myself. I got my first period when I think I was 11. And so I was in 7th grade in New York in a pretty small, junior high. And that's just a tough age. On top of that, I also had this really weird haircut. So like I'm just awkward 7th grader. Bad, but really, really, really bad haircut. If you can imagine like a pixie cut, if you know what that is. So it's like a pixie cut gone wrong because my hair's curly enough that it just looked horrendous. So
Oh my goodness.
awkward enough. But anyway, I did grow up in a home where, I was sort of told about getting your period and what to expect. And yet we really didn't talk very much about it, my mother and I was the oldest, so I didn't have an older sister. Um, and I also just never felt very close with my father. And so I remember feeling very self-conscious and uncomfortable around any changes that were happening in my body, right? And so again, here I am in junior high. It was just after spring or summer break. That's when you do your best clothes shopping. You kind of plan for the person you're going to be that school year. Oh, sorry, my cat's trying to say hello.
Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Um, So I show up at school in these brand new white jeans. And of course, that's the day I get my period. White jeans. And for me, for some reason, there was a lot of shame around it, and I was just mortified. And so I remember I would go into the bathroom and I had pads with me. And I was so mortified that somebody would hear like the crinkling of the paper as I opened it that I tried to wait until there was nobody else in the restroom. But you're kind of between classes, and the school was big enough that there were moments where you were by yourself. And so I'm huddled in this stall all by myself, just, well, surrounded by people, but like trying to open this little pad so quietly and not make a sound. And I kept flushing the toilet so that people wouldn't hear me. And I mean, I remember this so clearly because I just, the emotions around it were just so horrendous for me. Um, but that experience was so tough that the rest of the day, that was the only time I put one on. And so by the end of the day, I had bled all the way through my white pants and
Mm.
just had to still be at school. It was just a horrible day. And then my period lasted for 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
I had to live with that for 3 weeks. And I didn't really get too much coaching or support or talk from any of the women in my family. And so I really had to figure it out by myself. Like I remember all these little processes, like figuring out how to use a tampon the right way. That took forever because I didn't have anybody to help me. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have anything where, I
Mm.
could go and not feel ashamed. Like even going to the library and getting a book or going to the bookstore and getting a book was mortifying for me. So big learning curve. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, an experience that just stuck with me, obviously, because I remember it so well.
Yeah, I completely understand I didn't start in white pants. I started in dark blue pants and bled through and was given white sweatpants. So I
Like to
was,
make it
uh,
better.
yeah, yeah, and that was 2 years into menstruation. So I was kind of accustomed to it. But yes, one of these days I'm going to compile a book on the white pants or white skirt stories that I've heard because it just and now it's like black, just black pants. Dark blue just doesn't cut it. Black.
Yeah. Just go dark, go baggy, be comfortable.
Exactly. And that's not the only trauma that you've experienced. You have a daughter.
Mhm.
Um, and so your kind of specialty is in that postpartum space. And we consider postpartum to be after the delivery. However, could postpartum also be kind of through the delivery or even before, like while in labor? Can it start there?
I've never really thought about that. I've never really heard that. I mean, really, I think you could consider postpartum being the moment the baby is born in my understanding. So really, you're still in your birth experience, and all of a sudden, it is such a wild, fast transition. You go from laboring to all of a sudden this baby, and then this period of time between when after the baby's born, before the placenta is delivered, there's this window, and then, after that. So there definitely are stages where you could certainly um, apply the postpartum term to, for sure. But I think a lot of it is just transitionary, and that's true to life, right? We as humans love to try and understand things and the way things work, but experience is so much richer and grayer, or rather than gray, think of it as like a rainbow or a million colors rather than one.
Yeah. And how did you get into being a naturopath and acupuncturist? Was that something that you always wanted to do? Or was there a point in your life that you're like, I really want to go in this direction that kind of led you down to where you're at right now?
Yeah, growing up, I always knew I could be a doctor, and I don't know why I just lived with that knowing. And it was never anything I voiced it was just something that lived inside of me. And I never was interested in it because it always seemed so boring and so lonely for some reason. I always thought it would be a really lonely career. I don't know why. And then when I was, I think, 21, I met a naturopathic doctor and I started working for her. She had this little like herbal medicinary, and I worked in there when I was in my undergrad. And I fell in love with naturopathic medicine because I was like, oh, I actually get to be really, really creative with people. You can create a treatment plan just for them. This is individualized medicine, and it's so cool. And it can involve anything from breath work to pharmaceuticals if if you're licensed for that. But there's just such a wide range of therapies that we can offer people. And that's it's beautiful, it's creative, it's dynamic, and you're working with people. So it's not, the you don't have to feel that need to maintain quite the same distance. We have more time with our patients. We have more time to get to know them.
And that's one thing I really like about naturopathic medicine is you do find you make the time. It's not just the symptoms that you're looking at. You're looking at the whole person. And I find that that's missing outside of um, the naturopathic world. It's just spending time asking those questions and finding true answers instead of just being given a prescription.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the problem is that we are all living in a broken system, healthcare wise. Um, it's broken and we know it, but change comes slowly, unfortunately. And, the maternal women's health is, you know, in peril. I hate to say it, but, they're women aren't getting the care they need in general. And then when we look at maternal health care, it's even worse. So I just have felt really pulled to help women in whatever way I can. And then after my own experience giving birth to my daughter and my postpartum experience, I realized how much I want to help other women try and avoid some of the things that I went through postpartum.
Would you be open to sharing some of your journey with your daughter and what you experienced and how that's now led you to your book and where you're at?
Yeah, absolutely. So she was born in October of 2022. And I was very adamant. I actually started with an OBGYN because I was looking for the right midwife and then found a midwife. But unfortunately, we didn't really connect. It's just, I live in a small town and there aren't a lot of options. And so, but I knew I wanted midwifery care. And so that was more important to me than the connection. Um, but I went into labor. My labor was relatively short. I think that the like intense part of labor, active labor, was only a few hours. And um, but I hemorrhaged right after she was born. I started hemorrhaging, and so I was immediately taken to the hospital and received inadequate care there as well. And you know what? I cannot say that because the nurses were amazing, amazing, truly above and beyond. And the OBGYN just was unfortunately not able to be present and not able to be supportive. She also knew I was a naturopathic doctor, and that's kind of a not a good thing for her. She had a few
Yeah.
judgments. Um,
Point of tension right there.
yeah, which is unfortunate because in a care setting and in an acute care setting, that dynamic hopefully would not be present. But unfortunately, it was. The irony of it was that she was also pregnant. Um, so just an interesting thing. But anyway, so that set me up for becoming severely anemic. And I just entered this postpartum. I had no idea what to expect, and nobody talked with me about it. The OBGYN I had worked with didn't say anything. The midwife didn't say anything. Nobody that I knew who had had a baby had said anything. So I just figured, okay, I have a history of some depression, but and anxiety, but I'll just cross that bridge when I come to it, is what I kept telling myself, because I knew about postpartum depression, but not really. Um, and I really kind of in my head uh, made the postpartum experience seem uh, like it was going to be this wonderful, wonderful thing where I would finally have time to myself and I would find, well, with my baby, and like we would just kind of close the door on the rest of the world. And of course that didn't happen. And of course, I gave myself, I ended up, I had less than a week before I had to go back and start seeing patients again. So I also didn't give myself time to recover. But that started, so I entered this postpartum period where it was severely physically depleted, severely emotionally depleted. When you do that and you're going into it, you are also sleep deprived. That it just sets you up for really horrible things. And so I definitely developed postpartum depression, but I didn't realize it until maybe I think 5 months after my daughter was born. I went just for a routine visit with my PCP. They did a general screening for depression and they caught it. And thank goodness for that, because they finally, I finally had a discussion with someone about my mental health and the fact that the way that I was feeling wasn't normal. It was just that I was in my bubble and I couldn't see anything from the outside. And so I realized that I needed to help myself. And the way that I have always done that is with my brain, with learning. And so I kind of threw myself into what can I do to help myself feel better? And that's how the book was, born and created and birthed, was from my need to help myself feel better. But also I realized if I, as a naturopathic doctor, don't have this information, then how many other women who aren't doctors or who don't have a medical background are quietly suffering in a medical setting or quietly suffering at home, and they don't have help or support or resources. So I wanted to help them have the knowledge in one place and use that to feel more empowered in their medical settings. So use that as a way to advocate for their own mental health, their own physical health, because doctors are busy, they are overbooked. And it's really easy for them to stare at their computer and take notes rather than actually having a conversation with you, or to, ask you these standard questions and act like they don't even really care what the answer is. Or to even skip the questions because they just don't have time or they're not able to be present. I'm not blaming the doctors at all. It's the system that's broken. But unfortunately, if women are going to get the help they need, they're going to have to self-advocate. And their partners are going to have to advocate too. But I think that's really a beautiful way for partners to be brought into the birth and the postpartum experience, right? To learn how to
Yeah.
be advocates for the people that they love.
Yeah. I agree. And listening to your story and listening to some of the other things that you've shared with your story, with my older son, I went back to work within 6 weeks, actually 3 weeks, part-time, because I couldn't stay out of work for very long. I was his, I mean, my husband was there. He was in the house. But it's his viewpoints were, she's the mom. She takes care of the baby. I go to work. I come home. She takes care of the baby. She takes care of the food. She takes care of the grocery shopping. Um, and when he was about a year and a half old, I actually left my corporate job, came home, and I would sleep for 20 hours a day because he would watch Disney movies because I could not stay awake. That's how bad, and I wasn't given that postpartum depression talk. I have depression in my family, but that wasn't given to me. And it took a lot of time and work and medication, counseling, to get out of that. With my second son, I was afraid I would have that same situation as my first. My second son was different. My partner was a lot more involved because I had divorced my older son's father. And with my second husband, though, 4.5 months after our son was born, he passed away. So I lost that support system, which so that throws you into a completely different level um, with grief and everything else. But I understand that I didn't have that support. I had my family support, but yes, as you're saying with your situation as well, the support, I didn't know what I needed. My doctors couldn't help me. Um, so we're kind of left there like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And and it's not just, it's all women. It's all those that have gone through this process of birthing, because you, in your bio, you had mentioned about the BIPOC and the transgender families, but they have other pressures on them as well, and things that aren't quite understood.
Mhm.
And so they're even more marginalized
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really sad reality right now that a lot of these people too come in, they might be younger, they might be single or not partnered, and so both of those factors will also, and they might not be white people, white, and so all of that, just from the research says that those groups of people are more likely, like younger, single, um people of color, transgender people are less likely to feel comfortable advocating for themselves in a medical setting than cisgender white women. And a lot of cisgender white women are not comfortable advocating for themselves either. So it's like, okay, this is a huge problem. What we're left with is people, struggling by themselves with a newborn, maybe with other children as well, maybe feeling completely unsupported, feeling like they have to do it alone. And we're also living with the physical reality of massively changing hormone levels. Hormones have so much to do with mental health, which is why we can see these huge spikes in anxiety and depression around puberty, around pregnancy, around postpartum, and then again around perimenopause and menopause. This is not a coincidence. It's just a reality, and we need better resources. We need more support, especially for those people who might not feel comfortable asking for the support that they need in a traditional medical setting. And
How can in oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think that you are amazing, and it's a testament to your strength that, you know, losing your partner, the person that was obviously a huge support system for you, then you were still able to just get up every day and be there for your kids. That's huge. And people take that for granted, but it's huge because not everybody is able to do it.
And I've come across some that they're like, I laid in bed for 3 months. I was like, I don't have that option. My older son's on the autistic spectrum. I had to keep us, it was, I had to focus on both the children, both my boys. One, I needed to keep a schedule for my older son because he
Yeah.
lived by schedules.
Yeah.
My younger son, it was okay. He's an infant. I, I, I can't just let him wallow in his diaper. So I had to.
Yeah.
Did I feel like it? No. There were
Yeah.
days that it was one breath at a time. And I literally had to tell myself, Heather, breathe in, Heather, breathe out, because that was all I could do.
Yeah. It's a good reminder, helping me remember to breathe.
When we find ourselves in situations such as what you've gone through, what I've gone through, what you've seen, um, what are some things that we can do to advocate for ourselves? Where can we find resources to help us get the support that we need that's available? Because I know it's out there, but we don't always know where to find it.
Yeah. I'm going to just point your listeners in the direction of my book because I just feel so strongly that this is like one resource, rather than having to look in a bunch of different places. This is one resource. There are a bunch of optional downloads in the book for things like the list of red flags, physical and mental red flags postpartum. So how do you know when you need to get additional medical attention? People don't know. I didn't know that I should have been advocating for myself postpartum. I should have been back in the doctor's office much sooner than I was because of my hemorrhage. But nobody told me that. And women need to know this. We are not meant or supposed to be suffering alone. So again, the book, it's called Post, The Essential Guide to Creating Your Postpartum Self-Care Plan in Pregnancy. And it includes a section on how to have the healthiest pregnancy possible that's going to set you up for the best postpartum possible. And then it has a whole section postpartum on common conditions, what to look out for, symptoms, how to help yourself, and then of course, a bunch of downloads. But one of the resources is that list of physical and mental health red flags. So this is something to think about and just have handy for yourself, for your partner, for your family members, as well as creating a list of your care providers. So that's going to include everyone from your OBGYN to your primary care doctor to your mental health counselor. It's a good idea to establish a relationship with somebody, even if you don't see them regularly. But if you need that support, you want to know who to call. And even a lot of women have chiropractors or acupuncturists or massage therapists that they see. Put those people in your self-care plan and have the list of red flags handy. Talk with your partner, talk with your family members. Make sure people know that they need to keep an eye on you and that they have a list of things to look out for. Because a lot of times, postpartum women, our brains are wired differently when we're postpartum. Things change so much. We are not wired to look at ourselves, to think about ourselves. We go into literal survival mode, just like we did in adolescence when we get our first period. I was so hyper focused on the world outside in that little bathroom stall, and I was listening for all the sounds outside. We do that again when we're postpartum because we feel so vulnerable and we have this vulnerable creature with us. So we need to have our people helping us keep an eye on ourselves. And we need to have those people around us say, you know what? I'm noticing that your mood has shifted. I'm noticing that you're not eating and you should be eating. I'm noticing that you're looking really pale and you're having a hard time getting up and walking across the room. I'm noticing that your C-section scar is looking really inflamed. Maybe we should have somebody check you out. This is it really is about a village, and it's not just a village for the baby, it's a village for mom. So yeah, the book is the jumping off point, and it's the how to create your safety net, how to create your village, because you're going to need it. And
Yes.
of course, it includes all the naturopathic stuff too. I talk about supplements, I talk about diet, exercise, sleep, how to actually make that happen in pregnancy and postpartum. But then we also need the information that's going to help us advocate, self-advocate, and it's going to help our people advocate for us if we can't advocate for ourselves. Because that's the best thing we can do for our people too. I think a lot of partners, I hear this a lot from men or from non-birthing partners, they feel helpless. They're watching their partner struggle. They don't know what to do. So we've got to empower everyone.
Yep. And by having that plan, by talking about it during pregnancy and setting things up, going, okay, this is, if you see these red flags, this is what we need to do, and giving our partners permission to take those actions and gently tell us, we need to go get you help. I'm seeing these signs. You may not see them. I am seeing them. Parents are seeing them, coworkers, whatever. Let's go get you help. And then
Yep.
us, as we receive this information, knowing that they're not being mean, they're actually seeing this and trying to help us, and then it's our job not to fight it, even though we want to. Because I know that I'm like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to go get help. No, I didn't do that. And because I've seen that in me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, again, the thing with hormones that I think a lot of women don't understand, and I didn't understand this for a long time, is that everybody reacts a little bit differently to their hormones or to hormones. And we see it in puberty. Some people have a really tough puberty. Some people have a very mild one. Same thing with menopause. Some people have an amazing pregnancy. I had a great pregnancy, but a terrible postpartum. For some people, they have a terrible pregnancy, but a wonderful postpartum experience. So it really does, there's no accounting for it. But understanding that our bodies are unique, and at the end of the day, it's not about finding the right external thing to put into our bodies. It's about building the muscle of learning how to listen to ourselves, and also building the muscle of learning how to ask for and receive support.
Agree. Agree 100%. Because it's, yeah, there's nothing to elaborate on that one. I completely agree with that one. We've covered quite a bit and you've given us so much information. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners that we haven't brought up yet?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how much time you have. I just want to normalize this experience as much as possible because, again, um, if you're struggling, if a woman is struggling or a pregnant person is struggling, postpartum is struggling, it's not normal and it's not okay, and you deserve help. I think a huge part of this crisis is due to the fact that as women, we learn from a very early age to be nice, to be quiet. How we look may be more important than what we have to say or how we feel. Um, and this actually becomes very damaging to us and keeps us from getting what we need, whether that's getting what we need in a, career sense, in a relationship sense, or in a healthcare setting. It's damaging, it's detrimental, and it keeps us small and it keeps us from healing. That can be a big problem when we are recovering from something as major and massive as childbirth. So the number one thing that I just want every woman to know is that you're worth it, you deserve it, and you actually need it. And it's getting the help you need and the self-care you need, whether that's paying for somebody to come clean your house for a little while or making sure that you demand an earlier postpartum follow-up visit from your OBGYN or an additional one is required. It's necessary because you deserve it. It's going to help you be a better parent. It's going to help your child too. Because we can't show up for other people if we're not full and ready. And we're so depleted postpartum that we need all of the support we can get. We need all of the medical attention we can get. I will say this too, that the standard of care in the United States is one postpartum visit 6 weeks after childbirth. And medical experts, gynecologists, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists says no, absolutely not. We need to completely redefine postpartum care so that postpartum care involves a series of visits, starting from a few days after childbirth and going through a minimum of 6 months, so that women kind of get the help they need as their bodies change and recover postpartum. And there also is a massive push among experts to change this uh, medical definition of postpartum from 6-8 weeks after childbirth to a year, up to a year after childbirth. People, like, who's fighting that? It's the insurance companies in a big way, because they don't want to pay for this care. But the experts are saying that this is what women need, and this is what we need as a culture, as a country, to reduce the burden of the maternal health care crisis. We don't need, I mean, women are dying unnecessarily. Their babies are suffering for it. Their partners are suffering for it. Um, and the simple fact that additional health care, and that means maybe a few extra visits to your doctor. We're not asking for surgery or,
Yeah.
it just means more time with your doctor could be the difference between life and death. And I know that sounds so dramatic, but it's so true. We need and deserve that additional care. So the book is super, there's so much information in it. I've broken it down so people can kind of use it as a reference guide rather than having to read through the whole thing. But the whole purpose of it is just to help women understand how to self-advocate and how to build their people, their team of people around them who can advocate for them if they can't.
Yeah.
So
And I love that you brought up, if you think about a newborn, how often do we have to take them to the pediatrician once they're born? Within a few days after being born, 2 weeks after being born, a month after being born. You are seeing your pediatrician how many times in those first 6 weeks? So why isn't that we aren't? And then on the flip side, it took 40 weeks for us, for the birthing parent to grow that child in us. Our bodies aren't going to change back miraculously once that baby's delivered. That's unrealistic. It took 40 plus weeks to get to delivering that baby. It's going to take 40 weeks, if not longer, for things to go back to the new normal. Because your body's not going to go back to where it was pre-pregnancy.
yeah.
Your body changed, your breast tissue changed, your hips changed, your ligaments changed. Those hormones did amazing things to grow that child. Your body changed as you grew and became the mother, or the birthing parent. So to think that 6 weeks is all we really need is, it's just bad. I don't even to just, we can do better.
We can do better. That's a very
We
nice way to say it because I was going to say
we
that's
we can do better. We can do so much better for our children, for our humanity. We can do so much better.
yeah.
Where can individuals find you, learn more about you, look into your services? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is a great place to start. It's sanoswellness.com. And that's people often wonder about the spelling. It's S as in Sam, A, N as in Nancy, O, S as in Sam, and then the word wellness. There are links to the book there. You can also find the book on Amazon. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to just share that link.
Mhm. Absolutely. It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's on Amazon. Post the essential guide to creating your postpartum self-care plan in pregnancy.
Wonderful. As I said, they will put those in the show notes, including your website, all that. Before we go, you've dropped so many wise words of wisdom. Is there anything more that you can share with us before we head out for as wise words of wisdom?
Yeah. I think again, as women, the one thing we need to know is that we're worth it. It's so hard to hear. So I just want to say it one more time to all of your listeners. You're worth it. You're worth all of the care you need. You're worth the good food. You're worth the naps. You're worth the rest. You're worth your dreams. You're worth your baby. You're worth yourself. You're worth all of it.
That is so true. Thank you very much, Emilie, for taking us on this journey into postpartum and how we can do better and why we can do better and why we need to do better. So
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you so much for having me, Heather. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you are welcome. Again, listeners, all the links can be found in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, our mission is accomplished. Do you know someone who could benefit from this information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. Until next time, listeners, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website, embracingflowpodcast.com, to receive your free guide on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and always be vividus.